Today, evil has won. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to another episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. Looks like I'm drinking Packers tears today, Grossi, and today we're going to be breaking down the Green Bay Packers' loss to the Minnesota Vikings, 34-31. Before we get to that, I want to do a big shout and thank you to some brand new patrons and YouTube members. First, on the Patreon side of things, we have Michael Hassan, and over on the YouTube side of things, we have Vagabond, Rob D, Hunter Porter, and Jimmy Livers. A big shout out and thank you to you all. So, that was bad. That was real bad. Heading into this game, the Green Bay Packers without Rashawn Gary, amongst a litany of other players, David Bakhtiari still not back. And before we even get into scores and looking at stats or anything like that, the big story, unfortunately, is Elgton Jenkins tearing his ACL. Elgton Jenkins, one of the most versatile offensive linemen in the NFL, was our starting left tackle as Bakhtiari was out, tore his ACL, and it's not good. It is not good. And Packers fans know that they have been waiting all season for a healthy offensive line at full potential, full strength, and unfortunately, it looks like we're not going to get there. And on top of that, we are playing the LA Rams next week. So an absolute tough loss. So my thoughts are with Elgton Jenkins. And honestly, this team is going to be worse off without him. I still think they are Super Bowl contenders, but that definitely hurts. Rashawn Gary, as I mentioned, not playing today definitely led to a lack of pressure on Kirk Cousins, who had a lot of clean pockets today and was able to tear apart our secondary. And before, again, we get into stats, one of the big stats that we need to talk about is the 8 penalties on the Green Bay Packers today that cost us 92 yards. It just seemed that drive after drive, especially in that first half, the Packers found themselves constantly in third and long situations, and we just couldn't get out of it. Whether it was holding, whether it was hands to the face, anytime we had a decent run play, it was negated and called back, and we'll talk about the run game as we go forward. And a lot of people, especially Vikings fans, were in the chat and they're like, oh, Tom, you're so salty, you lost. And listen, I'm not that salty. I think I did a very rational thing and tagged the Iceland president on Twitter asking to sue the Minnesota Vikings franchise over the use of the skull chant, which, again, I think is very warranted, cultural appropriation, and I just hope that the Minnesota Vikings are brought to justice. So let's get into some stats here. Rodgers had a great game, 23 for 33, 385 yards, 4 touchdowns, was sacked twice, ran 2 times for 21 yards. The reason I'm bringing that up is because he was our second leading rusher. Obviously, A.J. Dillon not here. Patrick Taylor was filling in as the backup. A.J. Dillon, 11 for 53, 6 for 44 through the air. There was just no commitment to the run whatsoever, like at all. And this pedestrian kind of start to the game killed us. Mason Crosby missing a field goal, a 30-plus yard chip shot after he made a 50-plus yarder makes absolutely no sense. People were like, oh, Crosby's back. And then 10 minutes later, we're like, nope, he should be ostracized and kicked off the team. And there's just a lack of consistency on special teams, which is really hurting us this year. And when it comes down to it, do you trust Mason Crosby and those special teams to win us the game? I mean, Amari Rodgers is better at returning kicks, but it's challenging to say the least. However, a nice surprise today on offense was MVS, 4 receptions for 123 yards and 1 touchdown. Adams, 7 for 115 and 2 touchdowns. And it's just infuriating because the second half, the Packers, they came out and they were clicking. And then the first half, they couldn't do anything against this Minnesota Vikings team. They got down big early, and they just couldn't come back from it. And by the time they did come back from it, then the Vikings were able to score again, and then they scored in one play, and then, say la vie, we never got the ball back. And I think it's just so frustrating because a lot of Packers fans are going to wonder, what if we were healthy? You know, that's a big thing. And of course, Darnell Savage having not 1, but 2 interceptions called back. You had Preston Smith getting 2 sacks, which was great game for him. But Savage, man, One getting called back on a roughing the passer in which you had a helmet to helmet, and the second one, which I thought ended the game, in which we were going to be able to get it and kick a field goal and win it, or drive down and get a touchdown. He catches it, his knee is down, but the rule is he has to go down to the ground and have complete control of it, and he didn't. And so because of that, it was called back. The Vikings extend their drive, and they just kick a last-second field goal. So that was deflating, to say the very least. Kirk Cousins, besides those two almost interceptions, 24 for 35, 341 yards, 3 touchdowns. Like I said, was sacked 2 times, both by Preston Smith. Dalvin Cook, 22 rushes for 86 yards and a touchdown. But the player of the game for them was not Adam Thielen, who had 8 for 82 and a touchdown. It was Justin Jefferson. He tore apart the Green Bay Packers secondary, beat Stokes on a number of plays. There were some push-offs, but I'm not even going to get to that because I'm not going to complain about the refs because I'm not that kind of fan. 8 for 169 yards and 2 touchdowns, absolutely torching the Packers defense. And on a day where the Packers offense really came alive, scored more than 30 points, they came alive in that second half, the defense was the one that faltered. And considering how strong this defense has been, I think it just is a testament to, 1, Joe Barry, and 2, that we've been able to be so good with all these injuries. And the loss of Rashawn Gary honestly was just a little too much because we just could not get enough pressure on Kirk Cousins. So a lot of football left on the field, and it's definitely a disappointing loss against a bitter rival in the Minnesota Vikings. The Packers are 8-3 right now. They are no longer number 1. Thankfully, the Cowboys lost, but the Cardinals did win, so the Cardinals are number 1 in the NFC once again. The big concern is going to be that O-line going up against that Rams defensive front, and then finally we're able to have a bye. Aaron Rodgers dealing with a toe injury. He actually left a little bit right before the first half ended, so he came back out and he looked fine, but there are some concerns there. And it's just going to be a matter of, can the Green Bay Packers continue to overcome? It's a big game against the Rams next week. There's a lot of playoff implications there. And who knows, the Vikings, who have been an up and down team all year, this is a big win for them. Hats off to them. I know that Vikings fans are, let's say, obnoxious today. But, my hat's off to you, getting the W. And we'll see you in January in Lambeau, which should be a pretty darn good game. And this happens. I mean, the Vikings were able to beat us last year with just Dalvin Cook. It was Justin Jefferson's day. And even though Corey Bojorquez, great at punting the football, had an average of 50 yards, even though the long snapper really wasn't so good. Yeah, the Packers, it's an unfortunate loss today, and you hate to lose to the Vikings, especially the Vikings. And honestly, it just fuels that bitter, hated rivalry even more. But that's where we are right this second. The Packers, the sky isn't falling. We're 8-3. Every single team looks vulnerable today. You have the Titans losing to the Texans, the Bills losing to the Colts, getting demolished by the Colts. It is a chaotic season this year. So let's just hope the Packers get healthy at the right time, get Z back, Jair back, Bakhtiari back, Josh Myers back, and hopefully they can make a run. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. How'd you feel about this game? Let me know. You know, I saw me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy on all social media. See down below. Check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, and of course YouTube. And a big shout and thank you to all the patrons over at patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy and the YouTube members. But thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.